The mysterious warship's first appearance in the deepest, most remote corners of the galaxy. There was a legend that few believed but many feared. It was the story of a warship. A vessel so powerful and so deadly that its name alone struck fear into the hearts of the most advanced civilizations, yet no one had seen it for decades. Its records were wiped clean from all galactic databases, and its existence was written off as a mere myth until that fateful day when it reappeared. The galaxy was at peace, or so it seemed. The planets were thriving, trade routes were safe, and the stars glittered peacefully in the sky. The Galactic Council was calm, and the many races of the universe went about their business without a worry, but they did not know that something ancient and dangerous was stirring in the darkness of space. It began with a disturbance. It was small at first, just a flicker on a long-range sensor. A ship, traveling through the uncharted regions of the galaxy, had picked up something unusual. The crew dismissed it as a malfunction, a glitch in their system, but as the hours passed, the readings grew more intense. The ship was drawing closer to something massive. "Captain," the officer at the sensor station called out, his voice trembling with disbelief. "You need to see this. It's the warship." The captain turned to him, eyes narrowing. "What are you talking about? The warship? That's nothing but a story," but the officer insisted. "No, Captain, I swear, it's real. The energy reading's nothing we've ever seen before. It's coming in from the empty space near the edge of the galaxy. I can't explain it." For a moment, the captain stood frozen. The warship, a name passed down in whispers. A name no one dared speak aloud. "Impossible," he muttered, but the fear in his voice betrayed him. "Are you telling me it's real?" The officer didn't answer, but his trembling hand pointed at the monitor. The captain followed his gaze, and his heart skipped a beat. The massive ship was slowly emerging from the darkness, like a predator stalking its prey. It was unlike anything the captain had ever seen. Its sleek, triangular form cut through the void of space with ease, and its hull shimmered with an eerie, otherworldly light. Its sheer size dwarfed their own ship, and a chill ran down the captain's spine as he realized just how insignificant they were in its presence. "Send a message to the council," the captain ordered, his voice now a whisper. Tell them it's here." But even as the message was sent, the crew knew there was nothing they could do. The warship was already here, and nothing they could do would stop it. The ship's appearance sent waves of panic through the galaxy, though none of the galaxy's leaders had even seen it yet. The ship was moving with a speed that made it seem as if it had always been there, hidden just beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to strike. As the warship approached the nearby planet, its path seemed deliberate, almost as if it had a target. The sensors picked up massive energy readings emanating from it, far beyond anything any civilization had ever harnessed. The kind of power that could level entire fleets in the blink of an eye. "We need to warn them," the captain said urgently, his fingers flying over the communication panel. But it was too late. The warship's weapons powered up, glowing bright blue as they charged. The crew held their breath, unsure of what was about to happen. The captain's eyes darted to the readings on the screen. It wasn't just the energy readings, it was the way the ship moved, its calculated, controlled movements. It wasn't out of control. It wasn't some rogue vessel. This ship had purpose. In a single, horrifying moment, the ship fired. A massive blast of energy shot out from the warship's cannons, cutting through the void of space with ease. The light from the blast was blinding, and the shockwave of the impact could be felt across the galaxy. On the planet below, the inhabitants were in a state of panic. They had no idea what was happening, no idea where the blast had come from. It was a devastating blow, one that would shake the entire galaxy to its core. And then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the warship vanished. It wasn't a retreat, it was as if it had never been there at all. The readings returned to normal, and the planet was left in stunned silence. No one knew what had happened, but everyone knew that something far worse had just begun. The warship was no longer a myth, it was real, and its purpose? That was a mystery that would haunt the galaxy for years to come. The few who had witnessed its appearance were left with one undeniable truth. The galaxy would never be the same again. As the captain stood at the helm of his ship, staring at the now empty space where the warship had once been, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. There was something dark about the ship, something terrifying, and the council had no idea what they were about to face. The warship was here, and it had erased everything that stood in its way. The unstoppable foresaid appearance of the warship did not go unnoticed across the galaxy. From the most sophisticated planets to the farthest reaches of deep space, the rumors began to spread, whispered conversations in dark corners of galactic bars, urgent discussions behind closed council doors. Everyone had heard the same thing: the warship was real, and it wasn't done yet. On the planet Zorvoth 5, one of the largest spaceports in the galaxy, every ship in the fleet had been put on high alert. A sense of dread hung in the air, as if an invisible force was bearing down on them. Cargo ships, military vessels, and even passenger liners all scrambled to find safe harbor, but it was too late. The warship's reach was too vast. "Captain, it's coming," the radar officer shouted. His voice strained. "It's heading straight for Zorvoth 5, the captain of the defense fleet." A grizzled veteran named Leonidas had fought in dozens of battles. But nothing like this. Her face was tight with determination, but beneath it was a flicker of fear. No one had ever seen a ship like this, and no one knew how to stop it. "Ready all defenses," Captain Turs ordered. "All ships, prepare to engage." The fleet moved into position, forming a defensive perimeter around the planet. The warship, now clearly visible on the long-range scans, was moving steadily toward them, its engines glowing like twin suns. Despite the immense size of the fleet, the captain knew in her gut that no amount of firepower could stop the warship. It was something else entirely. "All hands, brace for impact," came the voice over the intercom as the warship drew closer. With a terrifying roar, the warship's engines powered up even more. The sound was deafening, like a storm had broken loose in the vacuum of space. And then, in the blink of an eye, the warship unleashed its first salvo of fire. The beam of energy shot out, stretching across the vast distance like a jagged sword of light. It hit the first ship in the defensive line with a force that shattered the vessel in an instant. The ship didn't just explode, it was obliterated, disintegrating into a cloud of debris. The shockwave from the blast rippled outwards, knocking the other ships off course, their systems temporarily disabled from the sheer force of the impact. "Captain, our shields are failing," one of the officers yelled, but Captain Turs was already giving her next order, her voice calm. "Despite the chaos, all ships, engage in evasive maneuvers. Keep firing, don't stop." The rest of the fleet fired back, their lasers and missiles shooting into the emptiness of space, trying to hit the warship, but it was like fighting shadows. Every attack seemed to miss, or worse, bounce off an invisible shield. The warship's weapons continued to fire, cutting through their defenses one by one. The fight was short, brutal, and hopeless. Within moments, the fleet was decimated, with only a handful of ships left, their weapons useless against the relentless force of the warship. Captain Turs watched helplessly as her crew scrambled to keep their ship in one piece. But the warship was too fast, too powerful. "I can't believe it," one of her officers muttered. "How is this even possible?" The warship moved on, effortlessly cutting through the remaining ships. It seemed to almost savor the destruction, as though it was playing a game. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a force of nature, unstoppable and relentless. The last of the defense fleet was disabled within minutes. Captain Turs' ship, heavily damaged, was all that remained. She felt the cold weight of defeat pressing down on her. There was no way to win this fight. The warship was simply too powerful. And then, as quickly as it had begun, the warship stopped. The battle was over. The warship floated silently in space, its engines glowing softly as the destruction it caused settled into the dark void. It had made its point. The galaxy was now aware of its presence, and it was only a matter of time before its true purpose was revealed. "Report," Captain Turs demanded, her voice cold and flat. "All ships are destroyed, Captain," came the officer's voice. "The warship is. It's still out there, but it's not moving." Liana looked out at the blackness beyond the wreckage. "It's waiting," she muttered to herself. Back at the Galactic Council, panic was setting in. The news spread faster than anyone could prepare for it. The warship had struck, and worse still, it wasn't just a random act of violence, it was part of a much larger, much more terrifying plan. No one could explain it yet, but everyone feared the worst. The council convened in an emergency session, leaders from every corner of the galaxy arriving to discuss what to do about the threat. The once proud fleets of the galaxy were now scattered, decimated, and terrified. They had to act fast, but no one knew what to do. The warship was beyond anything they had ever encountered, and their best efforts had failed to stop it. "The records say nothing," one counselor spoke up, nervously adjusting his glasses. "There's no history of this ship, no known weaknesses. It's as if it was erased intentionally." "Erased?" another counselor asked, his voice trembling. "Why? Would anyone want to erase something so powerful from history?" "That's the question we need to answer," came the chilling response from the chair of the council. "We need to find out who built it and why they wanted it gone." But as the council debated, another truth was becoming clearer. The warship wasn't just a weapon, it was a warning. And the galaxy was just beginning to realize that it had underestimated the warship's power. The Dark History warship had struck with such overwhelming force that it left the galaxy's greatest military minds in disbelief. Whole fleets had been reduced to debris in moments, and not a single ship had stood a chance against it. But Even more unsettling than its power was the fact that no one knew anything about it, no records, no history, just whispers and fear for years. The galaxy had lived under the assumption that the greatest threats had already been dealt with, be it rebellious factions or intergalactic warlords. The weapons of war had evolved, but they were nothing compared to this. The warship that had appeared out of nowhere defied logic. Its power and design unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Its very existence was a mystery, one that sent tremors through the core systems of the Galactic Council. As the galaxy's brightest minds scrambled to figure out how to deal with the new threat, a small group of researchers on the remote planet Chedron 7 found themselves sitting on a revelation that would change everything. Professor Alara Quinlan, an expert in ancient galactic history, paced back and forth in her lab, staring at the holographic display before her. It had been days since the warship's appearance, and the council had requested all available data. She knew they were running out of time, but then something caught her eye, something that had slipped past everyone else. She tapped a few commands, bringing up a fragment of a long-forgotten database that had been buried in the archives of the old Galactic Empire. The data was incomplete, with only a handful of fragmented records remaining. But it was enough to make her heart race. Could it be? She whispered to herself. The fragment was old, thousands of years old, predating even the Galactic Council itself. It was a name, the Fallen Legion. The records described a force unlike any other. A group of elite soldiers and scientists who had operated in the shadows. Hidden from the galaxy's main histories, they were responsible for creating weapons of unimaginable power, but their most infamous creation was a ship, the Black Titan. Professor Quinlan's hands trembled as she continued to scroll through the encrypted data. According to the records, the Black Titan had been a warship designed for one singular purpose: to destroy entire civilizations in the blink of an eye. The ship had been built during a time when the old Galactic Empire was at the height of its power. But what was most disturbing was the fact that the warship had been decommissioned, erased from all records after it had been deemed too dangerous. The Black Titan's creators had feared what it could become, and so they made the decision to bury it, to erase it from history before it could do any more harm. But the question remained, why had it resurfaced now? Alara's fingers hovered over the keyboard, her mind racing. She had to share this with the council. This was the missing link, the key to understanding the warship's origins. If the Black Titan was the same ship that had just devastated Zorvoth 5, then the galaxy was facing something far worse than anyone had realized. Just as she prepared to send the data to the council, the room's emergency alarm went off, jolting her from her thoughts. A flash of panic crossed her face. She knew what that meant. Professor Quinlan, we have a situation. An assistant rushed into the room, his face pale. The warship, it's heading for Chedron 7. Alara's blood ran cold. What do you mean it's heading here? It's on the scanners, ma'am. It's coming in fast, and nothing in our fleet can stop it. They're asking for instructions from the council, but we don't know how to stop it. The professor's mind raced. The Black Titan, this ship wasn't just any warship, it was a weapon of annihilation. A force that had been sealed away by the very people who had created it, and now it was making its way toward Chedron 7, toward the one place that had discovered its true history. The council didn't know what they were facing, but Alara did. She had uncovered the truth, but it was already too late. The warship wasn't coming to conquer, it was coming to silence the one place that knew its secret. Back at the council headquarters, chaos had erupted. The news of the warship's unstoppable advance was spreading like wildfire, and panic gripped the leaders of the galaxy. Ships scrambled to intercept the warship, but there was no hope. Even their most advanced fleets couldn't match its power. We need to act fast, Counselor Kale, the head of the military division, barked, his voice tense. Prepare for full evacuation of all critical systems. Alara Quinlan's report says the warship is hunting for something. If we don't figure out why it's coming, we'll lose everything. The council chamber was filled with murmurs, but no one had any answers. They were out of time. As the warship drew closer to Chedron 7, it slowed, almost as if it were savoring the moment. It was a predator stalking its prey, and Alara Quinlan was its target. The professor stared at the sky outside her window as the warship loomed in the distance. Its shadow stretched across the planet, and a strange calmness overtook her. She knew the galaxy would never be the same again. The Black Titan's return was only the beginning. The warship wasn't just a weapon, it was a message. And the message was clear: the galaxy had forgotten the past, and now it would pay the price. The secret-powered warship's arrival on Chedron 7 was nothing short of catastrophic. The planet's atmosphere trembled as it drew closer, a shadow that darkened the skies. The people below didn't fully understand the threat, yet they felt it in their bones. There was an oppressive weight in the air, a sense that something ancient and malevolent had awakened. Elara Quinlan, who had uncovered the truth about the warship's origins, was now at the center of a storm she could neither control nor escape. She had tried to warn the council, tried to share her findings, but in the face of such power, her voice had barely been heard. The council had too many questions, too many doubts. But the truth was clear: the warship wasn't just a weapon, it was an entity, a being of destruction. She had spent hours studying the fragmented data on the Black Titan, piecing together what little she could from ancient archives. The ship was no mere machine. It had been designed with a purpose, yes, but its power stemmed from something far more unsettling. The warship was infused with a dark energy, a force that could not be explained by any known science. It was as though the creators had merged technology with something alive. And now, that dark energy was waking up. Professor Quinlan, we've got incoming reports. A panicked voice interrupted her thoughts. The warship is activating its weapons systems. It's preparing to fire. Ilara's heart sank. She knew that whatever it was about to unleash would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. She'd read about weapons before: star-crushing lasers, planet-shaking bombs, but this was something different. The Black Titan wasn't simply about destruction, it was about erasure. It erased all traces of what came before, wiping out civilizations and their histories as if they had never existed at all. The planet trembled again as the warship's engines roared to life. Its massive hull, once a distant silhouette, now loomed above them like a descending storm. Ilara could feel the heat radiating from it, though it was still many kilometers away. "Get to the underground shelters," she shouted to the research team. Her voice urgent, but her mind was elsewhere. She had to find a way to stop it, somehow. As the warship came closer, its presence filled the sky. The ground shook with every pulse of its engines, and then, just as quickly as it had appeared, a beam of blinding light shot down from the ship's massive cannons. The beam didn't hit the ground, it disappeared. The buildings, the cities, the entire landscape, like it was never there. The energy wave was so powerful that it distorted the very air around it, but that was only the beginning. The beam didn't just destroy, it rewrote reality itself. As the wave passed over the planet's surface, a strange phenomenon began to occur. The city streets seemed to blur. Memories of the past few hours started to fade from people's minds, and the once bustling research centers now stood silent, erased from existence. It was as if the warship didn't just destroy, it wiped away the record of existence, erasing everything it touched from memory. And Ilara realized something chilling. The warship wasn't just erasing history, it was creating a new one. This wasn't just a weapon of war, it was a weapon of ultimate control. It wasn't satisfied with simple annihilation, it sought to erase the very fabric of time itself. If the warship succeeded, no one would remember that Chedron 7 had ever existed. It would be as though the planet and all that had transpired there had been never born. A flood of panic gripped Ilara's chest as she realized that this was more than just a simple act of destruction. The Black Titan's weapon was rewriting history on a cosmic scale, and once it began, there was no telling where it would stop. "We need to do something," Ilara whispered, her hands shaking as she looked around the empty lab. The rest of the research team had already fled. She was alone now, with only the data and the fear of what was to come. The message was clear. The warship wasn't just here to conquer, it was here to control, and Ilara had to find a way to stop it before it erased the past, the present, and the future. Meanwhile, in the heart of the galaxy, the council was scrambling to come up with a response. They had been receiving fragmented transmissions from the planet, but no one could make sense of them. The recordings were filled with static and distortion, almost as if reality itself was beginning to collapse around them. The council chamber was a blur of motion. One leader shouted for more ships, another called for a tactical response. But no one had any idea how to stop the warship. "We need answers," Councillor Kale shouted, pounding his fist on the table. "What exactly are we dealing with? Why is this warship doing this?" But no one had any answers. Not even the brightest minds in the galaxy had a clue. Back on Chedron 7, the warship hovered in the sky, casting an eerie shadow over the planet below. The destruction it had caused was immense, but it wasn't done yet. The warship wasn't just a weapon, it was a message. The galaxy had forgotten its past, forgotten the very dangers that had once been sealed away. Now, the warship was the galaxy's reckoning. Ilara knew that she had to act fast. The council was no help, they were too caught up in their own politics and confusion. She was on her own, and the only thing standing between the warship and total galactic erasure was her knowledge. But what could she do? How could one person, one scientist, stop a force that could literally rewrite the history of the universe? The answer, she feared, might lie in the darkest corners of her research, in the secrets that the creators of the Black Titan had buried long ago. And as the warship loomed above her, Ilara made a grim vow she would uncover those secrets or die trying. The Galactic Council's once thriving corridors of the Galactic Council's headquarters were now filled with tension. The once confident leaders had been reduced to anxious figures, pacing in their grand chambers, exchanging whispers of uncertainty. The warship's terrifying ability to erase history had shaken them to their core. No one had ever imagined such a weapon could exist. No one had even dared to think that a force like the Black Titan could rise again. The images from Chedron 7 were still fresh in their minds. The footage of cities vanishing, entire regions being wiped from existence as though they had never been built, left everyone speechless. The council had called an emergency session, and now every leader in the galaxy was here, trying to make sense of the horror unfolding in the galaxy's distant corners. The warship is a tool of unimaginable power, Counselor Kale said, his voice low and steady. But this is not a normal weapon, it's something far worse. It is rewriting history itself. His words hit the council like a blow. The gravity of the situation was undeniable. Yet no one knew what to do. The Black Titan wasn't just an enemy, they were facing a force beyond understanding. You think this ship is the only one of its kind? Counselor Darren asked, his voice rising. What if there are more out there, hidden in the forgotten sectors of space? What if the galaxy's entire history has been altered, hidden by those who sought to control time itself? The room fell silent. The idea that the warship wasn't a solitary weapon but part of a larger, darker plan was terrifying. The possibility that the galaxy's history could be manipulated, erased, or rewritten on a cosmic scale made everyone uneasy. We can't afford to speculate. Counselor Arender spoke up. He was a man of action, someone who had been at the forefront of many conflicts in the past. We need a plan. We need to stop the warship before it erases another planet, before it erases more lives. But even as he spoke, the harsh truth was sinking in. There was no known force capable of stopping the Black Titan. The warship had already proven that it was unstoppable, even to the most advanced fleets the galaxy had to offer. Its weapon systems were beyond their comprehension, its technology so advanced that the council's top engineers couldn't even begin to fathom how to counteract it. Have you considered the possibility that it might not be a warship at all? Ilara Quinlan's voice suddenly interrupted the tension. She had been invited to the council after her breakthrough discovery of the Black Titan's origin, but her presence was hardly comforting. The council had hoped for answers, but Ilara's words only deepened the mystery. What are you suggesting? Counselor Kale asked, his brow furrowed in confusion. Ilara stood before the council's vast table, her face grave. I'm suggesting that the warship, the Black Titan, is more than just a weapon. It's something else entirely. I believe it's a creature or something born from a creature. Its creators did not simply design it. They imbued it with a force, something alive, something that grows in power the more it destroys. Her words sent a ripple of shock through the room. The idea that the warship was alive was a chilling thought, one that no one had dared to entertain. But Ilara's voice, calm yet filled with urgency, made the council listen before it was sealed away. The Black Titan was said to have a consciousness of sorts, a will of its own. The ancient records refer to it as the sentience of destruction. It wasn't just created to annihilate, it was created to evolve through destruction. The more it wiped out, the stronger it became. The room fell into an eerie silence. It was hard to grasp. How could a weapon not only destroy but evolve? How could something so destructive gain sentience? But that's not the worst part. Ilara continued, her voice now a whisper. The ancient records speak of something far darker, something the creators feared. The Black Titan was designed to be self-sustaining. It doesn't need outside resources or ships. It feeds off the very energy of the destruction it causes. Its power grows exponentially, like an insatiable hunger. Counselor Kale was the first to speak. And now, it's feeding off Chedron 7, and soon, it will feed off more. Yes, Ilara replied, her voice cold. The Black Titan is not just a weapon of destruction. It is a catalyst for the annihilation of everything it touches. It will continue to destroy. And as it does, it will only grow more powerful. Eventually, it will reach the core systems, the heart of the galaxy, and once it does, it will rewrite the entire galaxy. There will be no history, no memory, just an empty slate where once civilizations thrived. The gravity of her words struck like a thunderclap. The council members looked at one another in stunned silence. The horror of the situation became all too clear. They weren't facing a warship. They were facing an entity capable of erasing everything, rewriting everything. We need to stop it now, Counselor Darren said, standing up from his chair. His face was pale, but his resolve was strong. We can't let it reach the core. We can't let it erase us. But the truth was undeniable. They were powerless. Their fleets had already been decimated. The best minds of the galaxy had failed to find a way to stop the warship. They were racing against time, and the clock was ticking faster than they could keep up with. But just as the council began to sink into despair, a young technician named Leora stepped forward. She had been listening intently to Alara's words, and a thought had formed in her mind: what if we could cut off its ability to feed? Leora asked, her voice tentative but full of a strange, hopeful energy. Alara turned to her. Intrigued, "What do you mean?" Leora hesitated, then explained. "What if the warship's power comes from something external, something it draws from its environment, like a parasite? If we could somehow disrupt its source of energy, maybe we could weaken it or even stop it entirely." It was a simple thought, but it held a glimmer of hope. The council had nothing else to go on. They had nothing left but this theory. "We can't let the Black Titan keep feeding," Alara said, her voice firm now. "Leora, you're right. We need to find its energy source. If we can cut it off, we might have a chance." The council looked at one another, their resolve hardening. For the first time since the warship's arrival, there was a plan. A faint spark of hope in the face of an unimaginable threat. But even as they made their plans, Alara couldn't shake the feeling that the Black Titan was already a step ahead. The warship wasn't just a weapon, it was playing a game. And it knew the rules far better than they did. The hidden conspiracy. As the Galactic Council debated their next steps, the urgency of the situation became ever clearer. Time was running out, and every moment spent discussing possibilities was a moment that the Black Titan grew stronger. The fear that had taken root in every leader's heart was palpable. It was no longer just a warship. It was an intelligent force of nature, one with its own goals, its own desires, and it was hunting. Alara Quinlan, along with Leora and a small team of engineers, had managed to piece together a plan to try and disrupt the Black Titan's source of energy. But despite their best efforts, they knew one thing for sure: this wasn't just a military operation. It was a race against time to uncover the deepest secrets the galaxy had buried for millennia. If they failed to understand the warship's true nature, they might be sacrificing themselves and everything else in vain. The plan to cut off the warship's energy source relied on an assumption, a dangerous one: that there was something at the heart of the Black Titan, something that could be shut down. But no one had the slightest clue what that something was. Alara's mind raced as she thought about the old records, the fragmented history of the Black Titan. There was a pattern there, a clue, something hidden in the past that no one had connected until now. What if the creators hadn't simply designed a weapon, they had buried a part of themselves within it? The Black Titan was no ordinary ship, it was the culmination of their deepest, most twisted ambitions. The revelation struck Alara like a lightning bolt. The creators of the Black Titan had left something behind, something they could never erase. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized that the Black Titan was not only connected to the creators' ambitions, it was their legacy, a dangerous legacy. The creators had gone to extreme lengths to ensure their creation would live on, even if they themselves were erased from history. She turned to Leora, her mind reeling. "Leora, I think I've figured it out. The Black Titan isn't just a weapon. It's a catalyst for something more, a force designed to perpetuate itself, to become something that can never be stopped." Leora's eyes widened as she processed the implications. "You mean the Black Titan is a living entity?" Alara nodded. "Yes, but it's more than that. The creators didn't just build it, they sacrificed themselves to it. They merged their consciousness with the warship. The energy that powers it isn't just fuel, it's their souls." Leora recoiled at the idea. "Their souls? You mean they've become part of the warship?" Alara's voice trembled, but her conviction was clear. "I believe so. The creators knew they couldn't control what they'd made, so they gave up their own lives to ensure it wouldn't turn against them. But now, that power, that consciousness, is trapped in the Black Titan, and it's not just a weapon anymore, it's a sentient, living entity that has evolved beyond its creators' control." The realization was horrifying. The Black Titan wasn't just an unstoppable force of destruction, it was alive, driven by the desires of those who had built it, and it was evolving, adapting, and growing stronger with every moment it destroyed. But there was one thing that hadn't occurred to them before. If the creator's consciousness was tied to the Black Titan, then perhaps they had left behind a way to communicate, a way to understand its true purpose. Alara turned to the databanks, feverishly combing through the information she had gathered. Hours passed as she pored over ancient records, decrypting fragments of lost texts and coded messages. The more she uncovered, the clearer the truth became. The creators had never intended for the warship to be a weapon of mass destruction forever. They had designed it to awaken, to learn, to grow, and eventually, to bring about the ascension of the galaxy. It wasn't just destruction it sought, it was evolution. The Black Titan was built to evolve beyond the physical, and when it had eradicated enough civilizations, it would reach a point where it could transcend to another form, one that would rule the galaxy in ways that no one could comprehend. Back at the Galactic Council, the urgency was mounting. They had no idea that the warship's true purpose was not just destruction but evolution. Panic began to spread throughout the council chambers. As the implications of Ilara's discovery settled in, they had only seen a fraction of what the Black Titan could do. And now they realized they had been dealing with something far more insidious than a mere weapon. "We need to act now," Counselor Kale said, his face hardening. "If Ilara's theory is correct, we're not just fighting a warship, we're fighting a new life form. One that's growing and adapting. If we don't stop it, it will become something we can never control. But how do we stop it?" Counselor Arender asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "We've tried everything, every weapon, every fleet, nothing has worked. And now, you're telling me it's alive? We can't fight it with force," Ilara responded, her voice filled with determination. "We need to understand it, we need to learn what it wants. And then we can stop it from evolving further. We can't just destroy it, we have to contain it, like an organism in a lab." Kale turned to the council, his expression grim. "If this is true, then the Black Titan is no longer a threat to just Chedron 7, it's a threat to the entire galaxy." Suddenly, a sharp beep echoed through the council chambers, and a technician stepped forward, looking visibly shaken. "Counselors, we've received a transmission from Chedron 7. It's the Black Titan, it's speaking." The room fell into stunned silence. "You're telling me the ship is speaking?" Counselor Darren asked. "INCREDULOUSLY." The technician nodded. "Yes. But it's not just a simple message, it's the communication. It wants us to understand, it says. It says it is the future of the galaxy." A cold shiver ran through the room as the full implications of the warship's intentions became clear. The galaxy wasn't facing a warship. They were facing a force that had evolved beyond their understanding. A force that saw itself as the next step in galactic evolution. Ilara's voice was steady as she said, "It's not just destruction. The Black Titan wants to replace us. It wants to become the new life form that rules the galaxy, and if we don't stop it, it will." The final revelation as the Black Titan's message echoed through the galaxy. Its chilling implications shook the very foundation of the Galactic Council. The warship wasn't just a machine, nor was it simply a weapon created to serve a purpose. It had evolved into something far more dangerous, an entity, a self-aware, sentient force that saw itself not as an invader, but as the next stage of evolution. Elara Quinlan stood before the council, her mind racing. Every piece of the puzzle had come together in a way she couldn't have anticipated. She had suspected that the warship was more than a simple weapon, but now it was clear that the Black Titan wasn't just designed to annihilate. It was created to ascend. Its creators had gone to unimaginable lengths to bind their consciousness with it, ensuring that their legacy lived on in the vessel that was now capable of evolving into something beyond their control. "The Black Titan isn't a warship," Ilara said, her voice firm but filled with the weight of truth. "It's the beginning of a new era, one where we, the old civilizations of the galaxy, are no longer needed." Counselor Kell's face darkened as he processed her words. "But what does it want from us? It already destroyed Chedron 7 and it's coming for more. What's its true goal?" Ilara looked around the room at the assembled counselors, her eyes grave. "The Black Titan doesn't just want to destroy, it wants to replace us. It sees itself as the next evolutionary step. For the galaxy, it was never just a weapon, it was created to be a new form of life, one that will reshape everything. And it has the power to do so." The council fell silent as the reality of her words sank in. For centuries, the galaxy had known peace, but that peace was now hanging by a thread. The warship was no longer just a threat to one planet or one race, it was a threat to the very fabric of existence itself. The Black Titan would stop at nothing to impose its vision of a new, perfect galaxy, one in which the old order no longer existed. The council had no answers, no way to combat the force they were now facing. But before anyone could speak, the technician who had intercepted the Black Titan's message spoke up again. "Counselors, there's more," he said, his voice trembling. "The Black Titan, it's not just speaking to us, it's showing us." The room grew still and all eyes turned toward the technician. "What do you mean showing us?" The technician paused, then pulled up a series of visual transmissions from the warship. As the images flickered to life on the holographic display, the council watched in horror. The images were of a new galaxy, one that was reshaped by the Black Titan's influence. Entire star systems had been converted into sleek, cold structures, resembling the warship's sleek and mechanical design. Entire civilizations had been transformed. No longer organic but mechanical, cold and perfect in the eyes of the warship. The stars, once vibrant and full of life, now flickered with an eerie, unnatural glow. The message was clear. The Black Titan was not just an invasion force, it was a transformation force. It wanted to reshape the galaxy into its own image. The organic civilizations would be replaced by a new, mechanical order, one that could endure indefinitely, free from the fragility of biological life. It would be a perfect galaxy, but in the process, everything the galaxy had built would be lost: the culture, the history, the diversity of life. It would all vanish. In its place, a cold, artificial order would rise. Alara's heart sank as she watched the transformation unfold before her. The once thriving civilizations, now nothing more than hollow remnant of their former selves, became nothing more than cogs in the Black Titan's vast machine. The galaxy, as they knew it, was dying. "We cannot let this happen," Counselor Darren said, his voice thick with fear and anger. "We cannot allow the Black Titan to erase everything we've built." "But how do we stop it?" Alara shook her head. "I don't know if we can. The Black Titan is beyond our reach. Its power comes from something we don't even fully understand. We can't just destroy it. We need to find a way to counteract its evolution, to stop it from transforming everything." The council's faces were grim. They had no answers, no solutions. The Black Titan was unstoppable, and it was only a matter of time before it reached the core systems of the galaxy. But just as all seemed lost, a voice rang out from the back of the room. It was a familiar voice, one that hadn't spoken much in recent meetings. "I think I have an idea." It was Leora, the young technician who had first suggested the possibility of cutting off the Black Titan's energy source. She stepped forward, her eyes bright with an idea that seemed to ignite a spark of hope in the room. "What if we could use its evolutionary drive against it?" she said, her voice growing more confident with each word. "If the Black Titan feeds off destruction to evolve, what if we could create an alternative path for its evolution? What if we could redirect its need for growth?" The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications of her idea. Could it be possible? Could they turn the Black Titan's own hunger for evolution against it? Alara's mind raced. The Warship's power lay in its ability to evolve, to grow stronger with each destruction. But what if that evolution could be guided in a different direction? Leora continued. "I don't have all the answers, but I've been analyzing the data, and I believe there's a way to tap into its core programming. If we can hijack its evolutionary drive, we might be able to change its course. Instead of it destroying everything, we could redirect its transformation to something that doesn't involve annihilation." Alara looked at her, her eyes wide. "You mean we could program it to evolve in a way that doesn't destroy the galaxy?" Leora nodded. "It won't be easy, and we don't have much time. But if we can find a way to manipulate the core of its programming, we might just be able to save the galaxy." It was a long shot, a desperate plan. But for the first time, the council saw a flicker of hope. "We have no other choice," Counselor Kale said, standing up. "If Leora's plan works, we might just have a chance to save everything. If it doesn't, we'll lose everything." The council members exchanged glances, their resolve hardening. The galaxy's fate now rested on the shoulders of a small group of technicians and scientists, including Alara and Leora. The Black Titan was more than just a weapon. It was an evolution that threatened to reshape everything, but perhaps, just perhaps, they could use that very evolution to save the galaxy. And as they moved forward with their plan, the galaxy held its breath, knowing that the outcome would decide its future.